See how that works. Who would buy it?
We are live.
Great. Welcome back to Center of Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, where we are turning ourselves away from funding priorities and into protecting Vermonters from being scammed on the ticket front, on the ticket selling front. So that's another one of our consumer protection bills. I just always have to remind us, who are we doing our work for? We're doing it for our constituents and Vermonters so that they can be further protected from some of the challenges that they face in the online marketplace. So we are going to begin our work on H512 today, an act relating to the regulation of event ticketing marketplace. Lauren Wayne, we are welcoming you all the way from Portland, Oregon.
No, Portland, Maine. Sorry.
Oh, go Portland, Maine. It doesn't say.
Not too far.
It says Portland, so you could be Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon.
The OG Portland right here. Thank you so much for letting me speak today.
Great, welcome. And can we make her full screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, now that I know it's Portland, Maine, I've been here. That's great.
Great. Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Lauren Wayne. I'm president of the State Theater Presents. We're a venue operator and concert promoter here in Portland, Maine. We operate multiple live event venues, produce over 150 concerts a year, and we work with artists from every level, emerging acts all the way up to the major touring artists. And I'm really actually here to speak because my business depends on one simple principle: getting tickets into the hands of real fans at fair, accessible prices. I'm here today to strongly support Vermont House Bill 512's proposed ticketing legislation, but really particularly the provision that caps resale at 10% above face value. I have firsthand experience operating under similar legislation that we had passed in Maine last year, Maine's LD 913. And I can clearly and without hesitation say that it works. Before these protections were in place, we saw the same pattern over and over and over again. Tickets would go on sale, and within seconds, a significant portion would be scooped up by the predatory resellers and brokers using automated tools and bulk purchasing tactics. Those tickets would immediately reappear on secondary marketplaces at 2, 3, sometimes 5 to 6 times the original price. And the people who lost out were not the resellers, they were the fans, they're the families, and they're the Mainers priced out of experiences that were intended to be accessible. Excuse me. And while it's easy to focus on the impact to consumers, it's equally important to understand that artists and venues are directly harmed by this system. When a ticket is resold at a massive markup, that additional revenue does not go to the artist who created the work, nor to the venue or the people producing and paying for all the expenses that make an event happen. That additional revenue from price gouging goes to a third-party speculator who had no role in creating the experience. And meanwhile, artists are often under pressure to keep their face value tickets prices reasonable and accessible to their fans. The result is a system where artists intentionally price tickets lower to maintain accessibility, only to see that goodwill exploited and monetized by resellers. In many cases, this also creates a perception problem for the artist and venue. Fans see inflated resale prices and assume the artist and or venue is responsible, when in reality, the artists and venues are losing control. They're losing potential revenue, and importantly, they're losing communication with that fan. It erodes trust between artists, venues, and their audience, which is the most important relationship in the live event ecosystem. As well, when tickets are resold at inflated prices, that excess revenue doesn't stay in our local communities. It leaves the state. Instead of supporting local venues, workers, and surrounding businesses, those dollars are captured by out-of-state predatory brokers and resale platforms who have no stake in the local economy. So since the passage of LD 913 in Maine, we've seen a real meaningful shift. First, by reinforcing that a ticket is a revocable license, this law restores a basic truth. A ticket is permission to attend an event under terms set by the artist and the issuer. It's not an open-ended financial instrument to be exploited. This clarity has allowed us to implement policies that prioritize real fans. Things like still allowing transferability, but enforcing resale caps to keep tickets accessible and identifying bad actors who attempt to game the system. And the result really has been overwhelmingly positive. More tickets are reaching actual fans at the intended price. We've seen a drastic decrease of bot usage. We've seen fewer instances of extreme price gouging on the predatory resale market, and consumer trust has been improved. And that's something I'm really love about it because buyers feel more confident that the price they see is fair and not artificially inflated. And importantly, we've been better able to support the broader local community, all the restaurants, the hotels, the small businesses around us that benefit when real people attend shows, not when tickets are flipped for profit. I also want to address directly the argument that resale should be treated as a free market. This frame is somewhat misleading. Excuse me. A true free market assumes a level playing field. The ticket resale market is anything but that. It is dominated by sophisticated operators with access to technology, capital, and scale that individual consumers and local businesses just don't have. Bots, speculative buying, and inventory hoarding distort the market long before an average fan ever has a chance to participate. What this legislation does is not eliminate resale or transferability. It simply sets reasonable guardrails to exploit exploitation. A 10% cap still allows flexibility for consumers who can't attend an event while removing the incentive for predatory speculation. It's not anti-market, it's pro-consumer, it's pro-fairness, and it's pro-local economy. As someone who has dedicated my career to live events, I can tell you that the long-term health of this industry depends on trust. If fans feel consistently priced out or taken advantage of, they disengage. And when that happens, everyone loses, the artists, the venues, and the communities alike. This legislation helps restore that trust. It ensures that the primary purpose of a ticket remains what it should be, access to a shared cultural experience. I urge you to support this bill and to stand with consumers, artists, and local businesses by creating a more transparent, fair, and accountable ticketing system in Vermont. Thanks so much. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And we have some, I am sure, because,
Sure.
Thomas, do you want to start?
Sure. Two. So can you help me understand, you said similar legislation passed in Maine. In Maine right now, is the 10% on the ticket resale price, or is it 10% of fees related to 10% of the underlying price?
No, it's originally intended to be 10% of the original price of the ticket. It's being a little bit misinterpreted here in this state, which to implement on the fees, which we're having amended by the governor. So it's been a little bit tricky getting that language right, but really the original intent is on the original face value of the ticket.
But in practice, in Maine right now, the ticket prices that the people can resell is not currently capped. It's just the fees are capped relative to what the face value is. Is that correct?
We think that it's currently capped. Again, that is the Attorney General's working with the governor's office to make sure that the language is cleaned up. But the other thing too is that Vermont's in a great position. It's my understanding that Vermont's Attorney General has been working with the supporters of this bill, which is a huge benefit.
Okay, so I'm just getting documentation that in Maine right now that the resale price is not being restricted. It's just the fees are being restricted relative to the underlying price. I'm trying to get clarity on that so that we can learn from that. But that's great. Thank you for that answer. The second part of my question is the applicability for venues outside of the state as well as resellers outside of the state. So does the Maine law affect shows sold in Massachusetts or by shows sold by resellers outside of Maine?
No, it's only intended for venues, any tickets that are sold for events in Maine, not outside of Maine.
And consumers in Maine are relatively made aware of that when they use these platforms, that these laws only apply when they're buying tickets from resellers in venues in Maine?
I think that's a big part of the problem, right? I think the average consumer isn't too savvy on what the legislation is in each state. So a lot of the problem is that predatory resale marketplaces, they're committing what I think is fraud by not being clear that the ticket is actually not from an original ticket issuer. And That's a lot. It causes a ton of confusion. It used to happen with us all the time before LD 913 was passed. We've had tickets resold 3 or 4 times, and a patron doesn't know that until they come to the venue and they realize that their ticket's not verified, and we can't allow them into the venue. That's actually a ticket that left our primary ticket platform, and as soon as that ticket leaves our platform, we have no communication with the patron, and we have no way to verify the ticket.
Last comment I'd make, if I could, I really love what Maine's done, and I support 90% of what I understand about it. And even with the ticket reselling, I am against industrialized reselling, and I'm against all the really bad practices that I do see at agents and organizations doing. So I'm glad you're seeing success, even as you're working on the interpretations of that law. So I do fully support this full bill. I just don't think there's an easy answer on price caps right now. And that's what I'm trying to understand better, how Vermont can do it so that our consumers aren't being misled, and they're also understanding what protections they have under what context from what resellers and what venues relative to our neighboring states and provinces.
So
Great.
my understanding is that the objective, and yes, there's an original price, but the original price, quite honestly, to the main consumer, that if they walked up to the box office, they would get, well, actually, because some of the fees are online fees for the use of online. My understanding is that this bill is designed to capture both the original price and the fees that are attached to the original, what the original purchaser would be paying. So if you're paying a fee, you're paying sales tax, you're paying a fee for online convenience, whatever those fees are, whatever the original fees are, that you get 10% of the whole kit and caboodle. So if the ticket's $100 and the fees are 10, you would be able to mark up the ticket 110%
Correct.
of the tax.
Yeah, and a lot of the legislation too, including in Maine and what other states are working on, is all-in pricing, right? So when you're actually checking out, you're not getting duped by the face value of the ticket and all of a sudden they add a $20 fee on top. When you go to the, we call it the event detail page, you're actually seeing the all-in fee, which is the ticket price and the ticket fee. But yes.
Be great, because we do that at farmers markets, we do that all over the place. The tax and the other fees are included. If you're done, can I ask? I have 3 questions for you. First of all, I mean, I'm beginning, as a former theater producer, man, I'm beginning to think those paper tickets were great. And you're having to go to the box office, buy your ticket. It's looking better and better.
Yeah, we still do that.
All the food trucks that could be there as people wait in line to buy that Taylor Swift ticket at your venue, they can have. So anyway, I, as an old-fashioned person, am looking at paper tickets and thinking, oh, they were a good thing. We still had scalpers. Broadway, we still have scalpers, but it was nothing like what we're looking at now. So I have 3 questions for you. How are the tickets leaving your control? I don't get why it's such a sieve. Why is your control of your venue tickets so porous that these other online predators are able to somehow siphon off tickets from your controlled site?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when you had a physical ticket, which we still do, by the way. We still have physical tickets at our box office. But it's, unfortunately, with a physical ticket, that's easy to pass along to whoever you pass it along to, right? It's a physical item that you can give to whoever you want. Digital tickets is super complicated. So, a lot of the legislation too is trying, at least what we did in Maine, and I believe the Vermont bill is addressing, is spec tickets. So it's actually just the fake ticket. We have pre-sales that our artists are doing, and sometimes even before a pre-sale goes live, I see spec tickets on predatory resale sites. They don't even have the ticket yet. They're just assuming that their bot technology can get the ticket before anybody else and transfer that to anybody who buys it. But it's a great question. The technology is just not there. You cannot unless you stop transferability, especially in our case, we allow a patron to buy a ticket, and then 2 weeks before an event, we lift the non-transferability of the ticket. So we allow that patron to transfer the ticket, but they can transfer it to whoever. And then if they transfer it to StubHub or whoever, a predatory resale site, and they resell the ticket, I can't track that. And
So
so I
that-
don't know who bought the ticket.
So that's a piece of our problem, because if every ticket was non-transferable, you would be in a smaller, I mean, it wouldn't be as big a problem.
Yeah.
So why don't you keep all your tickets non-transferable?
It's actually dictated by the artist, and it is another way to allow a patron, if they buy a ticket 4 months in advance and it turns out they can't get a babysitter or something, and we don't want the ticket to go to waste. Every ticket that goes to waste is a patron who doesn't enter our venue and spends money, really. So
That,
there are guardrails for most venues that they can, as long as the artist says that it's okay. We don't allow transferability until 2 weeks from the event in order to combat some of those, bad actors who are reselling the ticket.
Thank you. My third question, then Thomas has another question. So given that you allow non-transferability 2 weeks before the concert or 2 weeks before the performance, why have you developed a relationship with a trusted reseller that people like, that a parent who's lost a babysitter, or there's been a death in the family, or whatever the hell's happened, that means they can't attend? Have you developed a relationship with a trusted reseller that would take, and that you can send people to?
We don't use a third party. So our ticketing platform allows resale. Again, it's all dictated by the artist. An artist can come to me and say, do not flip the switch for resale on our tickets. And that we don't ever do that. We cap our resale at face value. So we have the ability to say, you can go resell this ticket on our platform if you bought it from us, but you cannot sell it for over the face value of the ticket.
Got it. So in some ways, one of the problems here is that the artists are dictating what the venue needs to do I mean, that's a challenge.
Well, I mean, that's how artists are without getting into the minutiae of the music industry. It's like they're making 99% of their income through touring and selling tickets. So it's a way for them to make sure that they're actually, making that money and making sure that it stays within them.
That has also shifted. Okay, that's evolved. Yeah. Which is interesting and a bit challenging. Okay, so that helps answer some of those, but I think the next entrepreneurial activity needs to be safeguarding your initial batch of tickets, how we make them less porous in the online market world, and that is critically important.
So the other thing I really like about the Maine law, which I've already asked the Director of Election Council, I CC'd you on this, Madam Chair, is I believe you define individual sellers and ticket resellers, and you have different restrictions for anybody that's an industrialized reseller. I fully support the direction of that. I want to lock that down. I do think that individual sellers not being applicable to these, or they can qualify as truly a person that you prick them and they bleed, and they're selling just a couple of tickets a year. Yeah. These restrictions should not apply. So I respect the Maine approach. If you have any comments on that definition and what struggles you've had and what qualifies as a ticket reseller versus an individual, I welcome that.
Yeah, I mean, Maine 913 was never intended to target an individual that, can't go to the event and wants to resell their ticket. It really was targeted toward the industrial predatory resellers who have millions and millions of dollars of investment in automated bot technology that we can't combat.
So the intent of the Maine law was to allow individual resellers to sell at what they want, as long as they truly are an individual person that is not doing this as a business. Is that correct?
Capped at 10%. Yep.
Oh, still capped at 10%.
She's on the capped at 10%. David.
Thank you. So I appreciate this summary of how Maine is approaching this particular problem. My concern is something that's a little bit different, and that's you have the original venue, and then you have resellers. I'm wondering what in Maine law prevents a reseller A from buying the ticket for the original venue and then selling it at 10% with a 10% cap to business B. They get another 10%. Then B sells it back to A. They get 10%. And a very highly automated system could jack this price up quite quickly. And I'm wondering how you combated that.
That is a great question. We've actually I'm sure it's out there. We've never actually personally had to deal with that at the theater or Thompson's Point. I don't know how you combat that. Again, I feel like a big problem is it's really hard to keep up with the technology that these corporations are using right now to do things like that. We keep our eye on it, and then we report it to the AG's office. We also, when a patron gets fleeced, we direct them to the AG, and also the consumer complaint report that they can fill online. Which I have to say, since this bill passed last September, we've really seen these complaints just drastically fall, which is what the goal for us really was, trying to get this legislation passed, is that the consumer is the one that's really getting hurt here in these transactions. And sometimes not knowing that, that $500 ticket, we're still selling on our site for $49, that they just don't have the tech savvy, or they're getting duped by a paid ad that a predatory reseller is running for our venue. They just, that's really the people that we're trying to help here. And our legislation in Maine has really helped the consumer.
Any further? Great. I guess, anybody, I had another question. I'm just totally updating.
I really appreciate your testimony. If I was coming across loud, I'd use my outdoor voice when talking on
No, it's
You
thanks
forget
so much.
there are a lot of indoor partners in here that are. Anybody, additional, so what's the size of your venue?
So we own and operate the State Theater. It's about 1,900 cap. And then we have our outdoor venue, Thompson's Point, which is 6,500. And then we go into all the open rooms like Merrill Auditorium here and the arena and the smaller clubs.
Right, but the State Theater is,
That's our home.
yeah, oh no, I know, it's great. As we look at maybe taking Maine and improving on Maine, any additional thoughts for us as we do that, on what you would do other than clarifying this challenge of that you're now having to do? Oh, I know what my question was. So that's still a question, which is, what would you suggest to us other than your fix that you're working on now with the AG's office? Did you give the AG's office additional resources as a result of this work? It's all about education of this industry, which can be somewhat difficult at times. In full transparency, we reached out to the AG's office multiple times through this process, and for whatever reason, there was not a lot of communication back from them. So we've given them all that we could. And I know that they are working internally right now with the governor's office to fix the language. The only thing that I suggest and that we had is, as you work through the process, please don't hesitate to reach out to local arts presenters and venues and ask for their feedback, because that was so helpful throughout our process here in Maine. And it clearly helped to shape the legislation. Thank you. And we have done that. We've had several of our major theaters and one of our at UVM, who does have a reseller and a contract with a reseller.
Yep.
Which is interesting. And our AG is very accessible. Their office, the deputy AG, is right here underneath you. You're staring at him. He's waving at you right now. So we're lucky enough to have a very engaged AG at AG's office, and one that's right in the room with us. So
that's great. Also, I really like to call out something in your legislation that we failed to put in ours, and I'd like to try to go back and do that. And that is clarifying that if a primary seller has a contract or agreement with a reseller, then that is protected, which we should have put in our legislation. And I think we're going to try to go back and include that.
That's why I asked you that question earlier. So that's something you would change.
Yeah.
Developing that opportunity to do that.
Right.
Thomas.
So just a crystallized point I'm going to take from this for the committee discussion later is that Maine has seen a lot of benefits from passing this law. And my understanding simultaneously is that you are not currently capping resale prices at 10% above face market value. There's a perceived intent, but the Attorney General has not necessarily given guidance that that's what the law says. And so that price cap is not currently in effect. Is that correct? But we're still seeing a lot of benefit from the law.
Correct. Yes.
But but let's just be clear, the objective was to cap it at 10% of the total.
Correct. Yes, and that is how we are operating.
I appreciate it's not an effect, but the intent,
Understood the intent.
I know,
Right, right.
the intent was to cap it at 10%.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. And just one other question, because you've been involved with this and Maine has obviously is now living with this and in the process of fixing it. Which international model because I understand there are several international models that have done this quite successfully.
Yep.
Which ones would you lead us to that we might hear from?
We weren't actually looking at so Europe and the UK have very restrictive ticketing legislation, which I would love to carry over to the States. I'm not sure we're there quite yet. We actually had a lot of guidance from the National Independent Venue Association here in the States, and they have been working with multiple states to try to get this kind of legislation pushed through. They're a great, amazing resource. We're a member of it. It kind of came out of the whole pandemic because a lot of independent venues obviously were closed for so long, but they really kind of guided us and helped us through the process. So I'm happy to put you in touch with NIVA. They're really great people.
We actually got a very articulate letter from them yesterday from Kendall Gilvar.
Oh, Kendall. Yep. Yeah, Kendall's great.
So I would encourage all my committee members to look at Kendall's letter and her great sort of info sheet, which is terrific. And we can have Kendall testify, but she has sent us terrific testimony so far.
Yeah, Kendall's great. She is very accessible and open to helping in any way.
Great, terrific. Anything further? We know how to reach you.
Great.
So-
Yes, please do. Always happy to help.
And the fix that you're working on is to do the 10% that would be not of just the fees, but 10%.
Yes, just to clean up that language in our particular legislation, just to clean it up. Yep.
Okay, great.
Great.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Lauren, you were terrific. And if you'd be kind enough to send us your testimony to our committees that took care of me, you may have already done that.
Yep. I will do it right after this. Yep.
Great, because then we'll post it. That would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mariana Cole, we are going to shift to you. Thank you very much for making time for us in your day.
Good morning and thank you. I'm Marina Cole. I am a registered voter in the town of Wheelock, Vermont. And thank you for this opportunity to share with you my story of how an educated person with technology skills, or to borrow Lauren's phrase, the average fan, falls prey to scams of the third-party ticket resellers. So it was earlier this year. It was Thursday, January 22nd, and I was at work waiting for a group of my students to show up for a field trip. I work in adult education with students in the adult diploma program, and while I was waiting with some of my students who had arrived early, we were chatting about upcoming events in their lives, and one student told me they were going to a concert in Boston. Interesting, I said, because another student was also going to a concert in Boston soon. I grabbed a laptop to do a quick Google search to see if I could find the name of the band that was playing, which I had forgotten. And one thing led to another, as things sometimes do when your conversation is moving quickly and the internet is offering you fun details. And before I knew it, I was on who knows what site, and I was learning that Lyle Lovett and John Hyatt were coming to the Paramount Theater in early March. Holy cow. Buy now, a huge button encouraged me because tickets were running low. I grabbed my cell phone and I texted my husband. It's totally out of character for me to make sudden unexpected purchases, but it had been a long, dark, cold winter and we were going stir crazy. These two musical legends were coming to Rutland, which was close enough to be reasonable, and our marriage could really use this date. So my text to my husband included these exact words. I said, holy crap, cheap seats are $200 each. I sent that text at 7:42 a.m. and by 8:21, I confirmed to him I did it. Despite the high cost, I spent a total of $421.58 for the two of us to attend. I did think that was a bit high, but in the moment, I just thought to myself, well, I guess that's what it costs to see people that famous. And then the emails started to roll in. The first automated one was immediate and all seemed well. A second email 5 minutes later confirmed my order. However, a third email caused me some suspicion and alarm. In a section of that message titled Ticket Validity, it said, and I quote, "The name on your tickets may be that of the original purchaser and not your own. This is perfectly normal." I knew that was not, in fact, perfectly normal. I might be new to the Paramount Theater, but I was not totally new to concert tickets, and they've always had my name on them. I read further in the email where it said, quote, "If there is a price displayed on your tickets, this represents what the original purchaser paid. This amount is typically different than the total price you paid." And now I was very worried. I downloaded the tickets, and sure enough, they had someone else's name, a price of $94.45 each, or $116.34 less per ticket than I had paid. And the tickets themselves featured QR codes that looked completely fake. At that moment, my mind flashed back to an article I'd read in VT Digger not 3 weeks earlier about third-party ticket resellers scamming people in Vermont, and I immediately realized what I had done. Where in the world had I bought these tickets from, I asked myself. Because I hadn't intended to buy any tickets at all. My search had gone from site to site before I'd hit that buy now button. What was I even thinking? I knew to buy tickets from either the band's website or the venue. Who did I just give my debit card information to? And what if they took all the money in my checking and savings accounts? I panicked, and I immediately called my credit union. They canceled my debit card immediately, but they couldn't stop the payment I'd made. I would need to file a fraud report and get a new debit card to access my money, which would mean a visit in person to the credit union 45 minutes away. And now I feared that my husband and I did not, in fact, have tickets to this show. Several days later, I got my new debit card, and because we now really wanted to see these musicians, I went to the Paramount Theater site and I purchased us 2 real tickets, and I paid another $222.90. And so, for the total price of $644.48 before a room and dinner, we now had tickets to this concert. However, when I made that purchase on the Paramount site, I had to check a box where I specifically agreed that I was purchasing these tickets for myself, and I attested that I was not a third-party reseller, and that if I was one, these tickets I bought would not be valid. So, now I knew that whoever bought and resold the wildly priced first tickets to me had also read and attested to that statement. And then they did the bad thing to me anyway. So now I was not just mad at myself for being stupid on the internet, but I was mad at this person who did it to me. I stewed on it for days, and I finally decided to just make a cold call to the theater manager, whose name and contacts I found on their website. I just wanted to tell her my story, see if any of the information I could provide would, I don't know, maybe help catch who did it or stop it from happening to anyone else. So, after a long talk with Janelle Soren at the Paramount Theater, I learned that this was all too common, and it costs small theaters in Vermont thousands of dollars a year when they try to right other people's wrongs. Janelle told me heartbreaking stories of grandmothers scammed into paying exorbitant amounts to see their grandkids' performances, and even a tale of someone who paid to attend a free movie night that the Paramount had hosted. My own story, though, is not a tearjerker. Here's how it wound up. My fraud report to my credit union was denied because, in fact, it is not a fraud if you do dumb things on the internet and give your bank account information to scammers. I filed a charge instead on the basis that I did not receive valid tickets, but it might be several more months before I learned that that's denied too. Janelle decided I'd already paid plenty to learn things the hard way, so she refunded me the cost of the second set of tickets that I had purchased, and she moved us to some nicer seats. She told me about the current movement in the legislature, and we agreed to be in contact if I could share my story later in the hope of making good change for others in the future. So that's how I come to be here, sharing with you today this story of how easy it is to accidentally purchase from these scammers who lied to buy these tickets in the first place, and then they profited greatly from other people's confusion. So you could be saying to yourself, well, that's a bummer of a story, but like, buyer beware, be smarter on the internet. And while that is what I already told myself, I'm not a legislator elected to represent honest Vermonters. If I was one, though, And I was facing a lot of hard decisions right now about education, taxes, and housing and land use. I know for sure I'd love a chance at an easy win for my constituents, a vote where the winners and the losers are clear. And I would vote to make sure that another regular Vermonter can't be scammed to the tune of hundreds of dollars just trying to see a nice concert at a little arts venue during the dead of a dark winter. I would vote to stop Vermont arts venues from losing thousands of dollars every year as they try to make these things right by their patrons. I wouldn't be fooled by the logic fallacy and the arguments of these resellers, namely that they're helping people get into sold out shows, when it's obvious anyway that if they hadn't bought up all the tickets wouldn't have been sold out yet anyway. If I was a legislator, I would support this cap on what ticket resellers are allowed to charge in an effort to disincentivize their lazy methods of making profits at Vermonters' expenses. That's what I would do. What
Wow.
would you do?
Wow, Marina, that's some story. And sadly, I think you are emblematic. Your story is emblematic of many Vermonters, which is heartbreaking. I'm just curious, did you ever find out who the name of the person on your ticket, who that was, and if they had actually been the person that did buy that ticket and check those boxes at the Paramount website?
So what Janelle and I could figure out, there is an actual person's name. Monica Bradley was the name on the tickets. Janelle, through her system at the Paramount, could tell that name, we don't know if that's even a real person's name, but that name was on a block of tickets. It looked like 6 of them had been purchased at once under that name. And I know that Janelle immediately invalidated each of those tickets, but then prepared for people to show up having purchased tickets with that name on it, making sure that there'd be seats for those patrons who would have been in my same position. So basically,
That's so great. That's
yeah,
so
so she made it right by whoever else this had happened to, but that's how they lose money.
Got it. So to go back, you may have heard my question initially, which is, how is the online market for the Paramount such a sieve that's available? But it sounds like they're being bought in small batches by people who are lying about who they are and what they are. And then, but that is, again, a question of, is that a transferable ticket or a non-transferable ticket? If it's a non-transferable ticket, how the hell is it being sold? So I don't understand that.
Right, and that one clearly had been transferable, which is how it ended up in my hands. But as a concert goer, I am hoping my ticket's transferable for exactly the reason that Lauren just said. Like, if I get sick, right before the show, and I'm going to be responsible, and I'm not going to go to the show and make other people sick, then should I just lose that money, or should I be able to offer it to another fan at the exact same price I paid? I'm not trying to make any money, but should I allow another fan to go sit in my seat? Or do I leave the seat blank because it's not transferable, or it's not transferable, so I go sick and make other people sick? Like, those would be the 3 choices, right? So it's like, I want my ticket to be transferable in case something happens and I can't go. I want someone else to go, but I'm not out here like, oh, I hope I can make money.
Right, or transferable sort of 2 weeks after, which makes some sense.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's great. Thank you, Marina. That was very helpful. So appreciate you being willing to testify, and so glad that things and has the concert happened yet?
We made it to the concert. It was wonderful. It was incredible. Lyle Lovett and John Hyatt were amazing, even after all these years. And that was our first visit to the Paramount. We loved it so much that, having learned the hard way, I purchased tickets correctly from the Paramount site so that we can now go next month to see Robert Earl Keen. So because Janelle did the right thing and lost the money, she earned a patron who will travel from the kingdom back.
That is just terrific, and all of Rutland benefits from that. So we're very grateful for those of us who are Rutland boosters. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this chance to tell you how it happens to regular folks. I appreciate it.
You are a classic example of a picture's worth 1,000 words. Thank you very much. And with that, we will see everybody tomorrow.
I
Thank
think you had one.
Oh, shit, but we've run out of time, so we will chat with students.
Can I come back another time? Because
We are
there's
gonna be
another
taking
person
this up
that
next
wants
week and we would love to have you top of list.
It's gonna be a con.
Maybe. We have.
Oh,
Can I
yes,
jump
sorry,
on
I
through this
forgot.
minute?
Okay, let's just do it.
Yep.
Let's go for it. We have a special message today and Keisha and Randy are just gonna.
They can watch it on.
I apologize, I
Okay.
forgot.
Well, everyone, hello. Thank you. I'll be quick. For the record, I'm Susan Evans McClure, Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council. A huge thank you to Marina and to Lauren today too. I think Marina's story and Janelle, who that's the story we hear again and again from the Lake Monsters, the Paramount, the Flynn, like the people who work at these venues just want to make things right.
So we have a special message today.
We do have a special message from actually someone whose national concert tour he made the tickets non-transferable for.
Good.
And even so, those tickets were for sale on StubHub and other resale sites before they were available for sale to the public. So Noah Kahn, as many of you know, is Vermont's kind of most famous musical person in this moment. We've had many famous musical people coming out of Vermont.
Full disclosure, I'm a huge busy head.
There, thank you. So he has come out really strongly about this fair ticketing marketplaces and creating fair ticketing marketplaces, and has been following what we do.
So that's what you call into a confident, a busy head, a comparative.
Oh, really? As opposed to us who are like slaggards?
Okay, well, that's not a great angle for him, so I'm going to play it right now.
Okay.
Can't hear him.
Okay, so that was a question. Was if the audio was going to work?
It'd be interesting.
When you join, you usually have a checkbox where you can say send computer audio in. So you might need to reshare your screen and check the box at the bottom.
Okay, Steve really wants to see this, so please stop my sharing.
If there's one person that could persuade me on this, probably Noah Kahn.
All right, well, get it on the
We
screen
made them the
then.
big bucks.
Okay, what am I supposed to do?
So when you share your screen, down at the bottom, you usually share share sound. There you go. Yeah.
God, we just learned so much from Thomas Chin's technical expertise.
That's what I'm
Vermont State Senators, Governor Phil
Okay, let's
Scott.
make it louder.
Oh,
My name is Noah Kahn. I'm from Stratford, Vermont.
I'm gonna
Okay,
start.
let's go back to the beginning.
Vermont State Senators, Governor Phil Scott, and the great people of Vermont. My name is Noah Kahn. I'm from Stratford, Vermont. And I wanted to take a minute to offer my support of HSTOP 512 and the proposed efforts for minimizing scalper activity on concert tickets within Vermont. As an artist that cares very deeply about the fan experience and accessibility of concert tickets, this bill is a critical step in eliminating predatory resale behaviors and offering Vermonters a great solution for exchanging and reselling tickets in a safe marketplace. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. This means a whole lot to the artist community and fans and consumers of music and concerts. Thank you so much.
Somebody sing it.
I know.
I
only
was
thing
hoping
I
he was
could
gonna
come
say
in
this.
He's writing a
He
song
just
about it.
didn't he just jump on?
That
It
is
was
so kind of him to take the time. to
It was
do that.
so kind, and it's something that he really cares about. It's something he's seen impacting his fans all over, including Vermont when he does shows here. He's done benefit shows here where this has also been an issue. I think hearing that voice of the consumers and the musicians and the venues is a really important piece to prioritize in this.
Yep.
One of the reasons that Maine has seen such positive response from this is because we know that the people doing this are organized and that they have lists of states where it's easy to do business. When you have a price cap, even if the AG is not enforcing it in the moment, when you have a price cap, your state comes off that list because the organized predatory resellers have decided it's not worth their time if they can't make the money. So Maine, actually, some of the resellers put out information about how to sell tickets in Maine. They said you could only sell them at 10%, even if it wasn't being enforced in the moment. As you know, the intent of the Maine legislation and legislature was to cap it at 10%, and the governor's working on it with the legislature right now. So having all of this, including the letter that thank you all for reading, I have had the opportunity to work with businesses all across the state. I used to be the chair of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation Board. I have never seen an issue where businesses are coming to us and saying, please, state, regulate us. We want regulation on this market because it's hurting us.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important voice to listen to in this conversation. Right.
It's
Thank
gonna be
you.
on Saturday Night Live next week too.
That's, I think we're coming on today. Yeah.
So you're going on Saturday night? I heard Noah is.
Well, if I was asked, I would go, but
Me too. Me too.
I think
Right.
I'm a good host. We'll
Sorry, on that note, we're going to say goodbye and thank you. And we will take this up again next week. And we will see all of you tomorrow.